All right, welcome to the Peer Diabetes Mentoring Summit Special Edition. I'm Bill Hargenrader, co-creator of the Peer Diabetes Mentoring Summit and husband to Danielle Hargenrader. Danielle, welcome to the summit.
Thank you, Bill. I'm very happy to be here. It's very interesting to be on the other side of the interview seat.
Yeah, no, this is fun. This has been a lot of work, a lot of effort. I've seen the hours and hours of work and interviews and inspiring people that I've helped edit or at least see you go through. And so it's just fun and amazing for me to be part of this. And I'd like to flip the script a little bit, interview you. We'll go a little bit into your your story of diagnosis, your diabetes dominator origin story. And then we'll go into some of your thoughts on the power of peer diabetes mentoring. So if you want to get things kicked off, what's your story of diagnosis? Can you share that with us?
Sure. So yes, my story of diagnosis started when I was 9 years old. It was actually a few weeks after I turned 9. Prior to that, I was losing a lot of weight and super thirsty and just starving, couldn't get enough food no matter how much I ate, and was still losing weight. So by the time my parents picked me up from school the second day in a row with terrible stomach aches, they took me straight to the doctor's office. He checked my blood sugar in the office and it was through the roof. I don't remember the exact number. And I was immediately transferred over to the hospital for 7 days. Of which most people watching understand are 7 days where your old life goes away and your new life comes to be. Yeah. So we were in the hospital and kind of given a lot of really scary information. This was 1991. There was no internet. There was no support group. We just kind of said, okay, here's your insulin, here's your test strips, and here's your glucagon, and try to count carbs and best of luck. And we also heard lots of doom and gloom about, amputations and all kinds of complications and things like that. So, but as a 9-year-old, you're kind of just like, okay, things are going to be different now. My parents are going to take care of me. And so they did. And that's kind of my saving grace in the beginning, is just that I had an amazing, loving family. My mom and my dad were just the best parents in the world. And they took care of me and we kind of just made it work, just like we always did. We were a strong family unit. Adversity came up, we kind of took it on head on and we made it work. And that's how things went for the next few years. And then the day after my 12th birthday, something else happened. As if diabetes was not a shock enough to a family system, my father passed away very suddenly. It was from one week to the next. He had a massive heart attack. He went into the hospital, had a quadruple bypass surgery, and never recovered from the surgery. So 1 week he was running his business with my mom, and the next week he was gone. So to say that changed our family dynamic and pretty much our whole lives, turned it upside down, that would have been an understatement. So 12 years old, puberty is coming on, type 1 diabetes in the equation, father passing away, all of those things kind of converged and led me into a very deep depression that was fueled by a binge eating addiction that led to me being over 200 pounds by the time I was 13. So that is the beginning of my diabetes story. And so throughout my entire teenage life, I was obese. I was highly introverted. No matter how many times my mom urged me to go to diabetes camp, to interact with other people with diabetes, I was just so depressed and so introverted and so angry at the world for my circumstances that I didn't want to interact with other people. But as I grew up, as I got older, began entering adulthood, probably around 18, 19, 20, I realized that the person that I wanted to be as an adult was not the person that I was currently. And so through lots of personal development and self-love therapy and searching for answers, I finally figured out that it wasn't diabetes' fault that I was obese, that I was depressed, that I was feeling all these negative emotions. It was the choices I was making around my diabetes management choices, the practices I was doing. I was binge eating. Sometimes I was taking my insulin, sometimes I wasn't. My A1Cs were averaging 13% throughout my entire teenage life. So I realized that the one thing I had going for me was my smarts. I was always smart. I had a good brain. I always got straight A's, which I always attribute to my dad giving me $5 an A from the first time I started school at,
Nice,
grade
nice.
1. So I said, if I can teach myself about anything else, I can teach myself about nutrition, about fitness, and I can make this work for myself. So through lots of learning, reading, researching, going to school, getting my degree in nutrition science, going out of my comfort zone and becoming a certified personal trainer, even before I was athletic, so to speak. I changed my life and then realized that through changing my own life, I could help other people do the same thing. And that's how the Diabetes Dominator was born. Really, for me, though, Diabetes Dominator was a persona that, which was something that we kind of came up with together.
Yeah.
And it was a mindset, really, more than anything. It was before there was any business opportunity or entrepreneurial venture, which is what I do now. But it was for me. It was that, who do I have to be to live happy and healthy with diabetes? What mentality do I have to take over? And that's kind of how the Diabetes Dominator name came to be.
Yeah, and I like it. I kind of liken it either to like a superhero. That's why I call it your origin story, or even like a professional wrestler name, like The Rock, for instance. Dwayne Johnson, we know him as The Rock. I just want to circle back real quick, and this is something that we haven't really. I know we know each other's stories and things of that nature, but I think one of the important things that you did was when you realized that you were basically creating the future you didn't want, you basically broke the cycle of a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. Do you view it that way? And then how, if somebody else is maybe going through the same thing, how can they turn that around and turn it into a positive self-fulfilling prophecy?
Oh, well, as you can tell, my husband is a storyteller, a writer. So this self-fulfilling prophecy and all these origin stories. But yeah, so how I turned it was that I realized that I was having the wrong mindset around life. I used to blame diabetes for everything that was wrong. Well, my blood sugar is high, it's diabetes' fault. It's, I'm overweight, it's because of diabetes. And I was blaming it. Not only was I blaming every negative circumstance that I had in my life on diabetes, but in doing that, I was shirking responsibility, my own personal responsibility for my choices. And our power of choice, which is something all of us as human beings have, that's really the only thing we have control over. We like to, as humans, maintain this perception of control over things, which is not real. We can't really control anything in this world except for the choices that we make in every minute of every day. And then when I finally figured out that that was what was happening, I could no longer consciously, at this point I was awakened. I mean, I don't know other way. I was unconscious before to my power of choice. And then I became conscious to this incredible power that I had. And with that knowledge, that awareness, when we're aware of something new that we weren't aware of before, it's almost impossible not to have that shape the things that you do every day, because now you're aware of something. Oh, I'm choosing to hide in my room and binge on all this food. Oh, wait, that's a choice. And it really becomes a thing. So I chose to switch those things around. I chose to slowly begin doing positive things for myself, keeping a gratitude journal for one. That was probably one of the biggest things that and something that I teach people all the time, is just be grateful. When you're grateful, when you're in the moment, you take the time to think about things you're grateful for, it helps you to get out of that negative feeling. And as you continue to catch yourself in those cycles and kind of reposition, breaking the pattern, so to speak, then it slowly but surely becomes a habit, and then slowly but surely becomes part of who you are, versus something that you have to consciously do every day. Is just who you are.
Yeah. And I think what's neat, kind of looking at this in retrospective, you and I both, live by the idea that the secret to living is to giving. And once you learn something, a new skill, new ability, something that improves the health or quality of your life, you want to share it with other people. And that's kind of what the Peer Diabetes Mentoring Summit is about. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how this came together over the last, it's been working for about, at this point, 10 months, but it kind of got started before that, didn't it?
Yeah, as
I guess I would say back to really embracing the diabetes online community is kind of how that kind of got started.
Yeah. So for me on my diabetes journey, I didn't know anybody else with diabetes until I was in my late 20s. And I'm 34 now. And so for 20 some years of my diabetes, I didn't really know anybody. And then when I began becoming involved in the diabetes community, joining Facebook groups, and then going to in-person conferences and starting an interview series, which for me was something I wanted to do so that I could connect myself with more people in the diabetes community, to have more meaningful people that I could have conversations with about things. And the way that changed my life it's almost indescribable, but I think most of the people that I've interviewed on the summit have had the same experience where it's almost like you don't know that something is missing until you find it. And then when you find it, you're like, how have I ever done without this for all of these years? And it's really just that power of Me Too. Going to diabetes.org and creating an online handle and then just going into a chat room and talking to other people with diabetes. I mean, it's really just the having other people to talk to that understand and truly understand, not like, oh yeah, you know, my dog has diabetes, I know what that's like. Like people say that's, oh, my grandmom had diabetes. Like when we hear that as people with diabetes, it's like, oh great, now you think I'm, you know, your grandmom or Wilford Brimley or a dog with diabetes. Like it's actually other people who have diabetes that live the same experience and understand what it's like. It's life altering in so many ways. It enriches you in so many ways. So I guess that's kind of the spurring thing that made me more aware to do things like this. But then, you know, with your, you know, you kind of urged me to do something like this because we have attended online summits in the past in different health related fields. And I thought, well, if they're doing this for other subjects, why can't I bring a free summit event to the internet for the diabetes community based on empowerment, education, and inspiration versus like, oh, we'll listen to this expert talk about your A1C. And not that that's not important, it's ultimately important, but sometimes we actually just need to hear from each other about how we do things day to day. And that can be the deciding factor on whether we feel good or we feel alone.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that, you know, the individuals that we have on the summit, you know, yogis, strongmen, you know, people, you know, best-selling authors, people that are, you know, just funny and sharing their spirit with the world. And I love the idea of it took you to your late 20s, you know, or your mid 20s, however, to start seeking out other people. And I think the more people do online events, more people do events in person, you know, the more people blog and share their message, that's one more chance for somebody who had no idea that this existed here, that people are living happy, healthy, fulfilling lives with diabetes. One more opportunity for them to, you know, kind of get their into the community. And so we're going to transition and get some questions here. So with time that we have set aside, we'll get through a few of them. And they're peer diabetes mentoring related. And the first one is, can you think of an example of a time in your life where peer-to-peer support helped you make progress, solve a challenge, or get out of a funk, burnout faster if you would have kept it all alone to yourself?
Yes, I definitely can think of something like
just
I can
one.
think of, yeah, I was going to say I can think of many things, but probably the quickest and something that pretty much everybody out there who has diabetes or takes care of somebody with diabetes can actually relate to. About a year ago, as you know, our insurance changed their whatever, you know, their ridiculous rules that are set by magic wizards somewhere off in Narnia. They changed the rules, and then all of a sudden for my whole life, I was only on Humalog. So of course I started out with R and NPH before Humalog was a thing. And then I transitioned to Humalog. And so I'd been on Humalog for many years, and then they were like, hey, Novolog. And for somebody who has to take a medication that literally keeps them alive, and you've created a flow and you've created a system that works for you, when you hear that you have to change that, it's a bit daunting. And by a bit daunting, I mean, it's like you have to spend a lot more thought cycles on it. It's like, oh, okay, this is not really the same thing. Like Humalog and Novolog actually aren't even the same thing. But what I did was I posted it on my Facebook page and just asked for people's feedback. I said, has anybody else been through this? Because I know people have. I just wanted to hear their feedback because it's comforting. And I got so many responses from people in the diabetes community that said, yes, this has happened to me, or this has happened to my child, and I've had this experience or that experience. And most people said, it's not a big deal. It really didn't affect me at all. Actually, Novolog worked better for me. And long story short, I felt so much better about it. And now I've been on Novolog for about 6 months, maybe. Not even, maybe, well, I don't even know, but a little while. And the point is, it's great. It's fine. It doesn't make any big difference. And I'm happy I asked my community, because otherwise before that, I was just sitting at home holding this paper in front of me, freaking out. And the community made me feel better.
Yeah. And I think what's great about that is that, you know, the diabetes dominator mentality is also that you almost take, your life is basically a science experiment of sorts.
Yeah.
And when you try something new, or a new technology or a new medical device comes out, you try it, you find out what works for you, you write it down and you share it. And there's hundreds and thousands of other people with diabetes out there that are doing the same thing. So when you made that post within minutes and hours. It just like filled up. Oh, here's what I'm doing, and this went poorly, but here's how I made it work. And it's like a hive mind of people with diabetes. It's incredible. So number 2, what has peer support added to your life and diabetes experience?
That's really a tough question to answer, but I'll do my best. I mean, really what it's added is the feeling of not being alone. It's added a feeling of community, a feeling of belonging, a feeling of I am not the only one who had a really low blood sugar today and had to take a nap just so I could get back into a normal schedule, sort of. I'm not the only person who's had, appointments deterred, or, just any weird random thing, or nearly passed out in a grocery store because your blood sugar is low. I mean, it's just community. It's added a sense of community. It's added a sense of belonging. And I know I'm not alone. I mean, I know I say that a lot, but it's, for most people out there with diabetes that don't know anybody else with diabetes, the loneliness can be overwhelming. So it's gone for me. So that's a big deal.
Yeah. And I'll chime in a little bit here. I have a day job where I work for a Fortune 500 consulting firm in IT, innovation, and cybersecurity. And I've been into peer mentoring for years and years and years. I have mentors above me. I've been a mentor for many people. And the idea of peers, it's a social construct. When you have diabetes, it's a disease, but it's a social thing. You now belong to a new social group. And when you work in an organization, a corporate organization or any organization, you then become that social group of people that are part of that organization. And if you've been doing something well for a number of years, so let's say you've been getting certifications and things of that nature, you can help people. I've helped people get certifications, get on the right career path that much faster. And I see how, you and doing that, and people on the summit, people are looking to people that are chasing their dreams, not letting diabetes slow them down. And that helps them just get that much better, that much faster. And so yeah.
And I've just seen you do it with the Wounded Warrior Project too, which is another social group that you belong to, military, by helping people who need it too. So that's a huge deal that I've thankfully watched you do and have been inspired by as well.
Yeah. And because some people say, well, how's that peer? If somebody's doing something, it's peer because you share that social group, and you're just mentoring is about giving back. And then when you get to that place, when you help somebody, they're more likely to help somebody else. It just pays itself forward. Next question. In your opinion, what are the qualities that a person who wants to be a peer mentor to others living with diabetes, what must they possess?
I mean, really, first thing that comes to mind is empathy. Just empathy and an open mind and a non-judgmental attitude, because we all have our different journeys. We all have diabetes, but as Bennett Dunlap says, your diabetes may vary. Everybody's diabetes experience is going to vary. So in order to get into that peer support, I think we all just kind of need to go say, I'm valuable. I think really a mindset of self-love as well. I am valuable. I have valuable things to offer. And I know that there's a whole community out there of people that have valuable things to offer me. And I'm grateful to be a part of that. So I keep adding words, but empathy, open-mindedness, gratitude, all of these things. But yeah, just the willingness to interact with others, share stories, and listen.
Yeah, great. And then final question for the PDMS interview questions. If someone wants to become more active with being a peer mentor, what would you recommend they get involved in or start doing?
Well, there's several tiers to that. I think it depends on each person's comfortability level with getting involved with things. I'd say for like kind of if you're socially uncomfortable and you don't really want to interact with people right away, I would say just join tudiabetes.org, which is tudiabetes.org, or join one of thousands of Facebook groups that are surrounded by diabetes, different pumps and different, just search diabetes groups on Facebook, you'll find one. Join them and begin reading the commentary in there. Even if you don't interact and say something back, just by reading other people's experiences, you are joining community. You're dipping your toe in, so to speak. And then for people who are ready to kind of dive in, which I think is a really great way to do this, because I think getting to that next level and elevating your life in some way kind of requires a certain level of diving in. I would say go to find your local JDRF chapter and see if they're holding some type of walk or some type of event, which they usually are in most local chapters, and volunteer for it. Go ahead, or just walk yourself, or volunteer to help the people who are walking, or even go to an in-person conference like Children with Diabetes Friends for Life conference. Really just kind of get out there, because no matter what avenue you take, I'm confident in my experience and the experiences of all the other people on this summit and other people that I've interacted with, that you're going to be welcomed with open arms and lots of hugs and just complete acceptance for who you are as you are, and know that, and just go out there and do it.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I'd also just say that we partnered with some amazing organizations for this summit. Like We Are Diabetes and Diabetes Hands Foundation, Children with Diabetes, Bolus and Barbell. So even below this video, you should find links to those organizations and just see what they're doing and find something that, aligns with you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even other organizations that maybe don't say, oh, we need volunteers. I bet a lot of organizations out there would be thrilled to have people volunteering to help them with different work and different projects that they're working on. So don't be shy. Just send an email and say, hey, how can I help you? And you would be surprised at the results that you'll get from that.
Yeah. And I went to one of those events up in New York with Marina, watching that going on. So even if it's not something that you can help out directly, and it's something you can share and spread the message to people with diabetes or even without. And so we're gonna get to the point where we have let me get 3 tips that you have for people, because your background, your specialty is in health and wellness. You're also a best-selling author, and so maybe if you can give 2 tips on how to be happy and healthy with diabetes, and maybe just 1 tip on a lot of people want to write a book. Not everybody writes a book, so maybe one of your tips could be on how to get started, how to go. I know it was a bestseller, but it took years and years to write. So maybe you could share something about that. I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so probably for the first 2 about living happy and healthy. But I mean, those who know me are not going to be surprised to hear this, but it's self-love. It is practicing self-love, and that's the thing that people don't understand about self-love. Just like a healthy diet, or just like physical fitness, it's a practice. It's something that has to be done every day or every other day, or things like that. Something that you do on a consistent basis. Because for me, the main hindrance to me coming out of my years of depression and obesity and binge eating and all those things was the fact that I didn't love myself. I didn't think that I was worth the effort that it took to get healthy. I didn't think that I was enough. I didn't think that I was valuable and could be loved, not only by myself, but by other people. And through changing that is what allowed me to begin living happy and healthy, a life that was full of happiness and health. So I would say practice self-love. The best way we can practice self-love is by giving our body hydration every single day, giving it the water it needs to survive, half your body weight in ounces, by eating lots of fruits and vegetables, and making sure you're adding in the nutrients that our bodies can assimilate to have all of the systems that are working inside of our body to have them do what they're designed by the universe to do. And really that water, air, and food are the main things that allow them to do that. By giving our bodies those things, that's the purest practice of self-love. I would also recommend journaling, which I do to many people as well. Starting a gratitude journal that you say every morning and or every night. I am grateful for X because this. And the because is important. So saying you're grateful for something is wonderful, and I would never tell people not to do that. But why are you grateful for it? What does that do for you? How does that make you feel? And by doing that every day, that's a practice of self-love. And to add one more thing to that, I'd say add one thing I love about myself today is and why. Or one thing I'm proud of myself for today is and why. Or one thing that makes me feel good about myself today is and why. And just really getting into the practice of that. So self-love and the practice of self-love, if that's not too redundant. The second thing I would say would be build your community. I'm not going to get much more into that since we've already covered that a lot, but community and self-love are probably 2 of the top most important things. And then to answer the question about the book, I mean, I couldn't say anything more simply other than just if you have thoughts, sit down in front of your computer and just start dumping them out. Do a brain dump. Don't think that it needs to be pretty. Don't think that it needs to make grammatical sense. Don't think it needs to make punctuation sense. Don't think it hardly has to make any sense. Just get it out of your head and onto the computer for you, and just keep doing that. If you have things bouncing around in there, just get them out and then do it each day. Do it, put aside 15 minutes a day to dump out what's in your brain onto a computer screen or even in a notebook if you're into writing in notebooks. And eventually you might have a book. And if not, you've done an incredible practice of healing and therapy by allowing yourself to write out what's in your head and get it onto paper.
That's great. That's great advice. And then I would just say, just because you're not doing grammar at first, eventually you have to do the grammar.
Yes, eventually grammar is important, but at first it's not.
No.
The first draft is for you.
There you go.
Drafts after that are for other people.
Unless you work with your husband or your wife, and then the first draft is for them as well. Read this, honey.
Yeah, and then you get to see how crazy they are, which is great.
All right, so we're gonna wrap things up. You have any last things to say? Last words to share for the Pure Diabetes Mentoring Summit?
I mean, really, what I'm gonna say, not to be too cheesy, but is to thank you for this, because as most people that are close to me know, you are my tech guy, which is a horrible way to put it because you do so much more for Diabetes Dominator than just tech. But I mean, without you, this summit would have not come to be. And I am grateful. And on behalf of the diabetes community and just people who know you through me, I just want to thank you for supporting my dreams and helping empower the people in the diabetes community and believing in what I do.
Wow, thank you. I'm blushing, but it's worth the effort. It's a lot of work, but it's worth the effort. Seeing the reactions, the responses, and the emails that you get. And I'm happy to help out. And through the blushing, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for joining the special edition of Flip the Script, interviewing the Pure Diabetes Mentoring Summit. Stick around for tomorrow. We got some more interviews coming up where Danielle will be back in the interviewer chair. And thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.